There is a material so thin you can tear it with 2 fingers. It weighs almost nothing. You can buy it at any dollar store for under $3, and when you staple it inside your attic, it blocks up to 97% of the radiant heat that pours through your roof and bakes your living space every single day of summer. NASA engineered this exact material to protect astronauts from surface temperatures exceeding 500 degrees Fahrenheit during the Apollo missions. The United States Department of Energy studied it for over a decade. Oak Ridge National Laboratory tested it under controlled conditions and published every result. The Florida Solar Energy Center confirmed that it reduces cooling costs by up to 42% in warm climates. Homeowners across the American South have documented total electricity savings approaching 70% during peak summer months after one single afternoon of installation. The material is called a radiant barrier. It is nothing more than a thin reflective surface, most commonly aluminum foil or aluminized mylar, placed in the path of incoming heat radiation. You can buy it as an emergency survival blanket from any camping aisle for $3. You can buy it as purpose-built radiant barrier sheeting from a hardware store for under $20 per roll. The cost is so low it almost sounds made up. And yet, walk into any home improvement store right now and ask someone how to lower your electricity bill. They will point you toward fiberglass bat insulation. They will recommend spray foam at $4 to $7 per square foot professionally installed. They will suggest a brand new HVAC system costing $8,000 to $15,000. They will never once mention the $3 material that NASA trusted to keep human beings alive in the vacuum of space. Not because it failed, because it works so well that it threatens the revenue model of every other product in that building. The global insulation market generates over $64 billion each year. The HVAC industry adds another $170 billion on top. Combined, these two industries represent over $230 billion in annual global revenue, and their entire model depends on complexity. They need you to believe that saving energy requires expensive materials, certified contractors, and professional installation with ongoing maintenance contracts. A reflective sheet that anyone can staple to their own rafters in a single afternoon for the price of a coffee cannot generate a service call. It cannot generate a financing plan. It cannot sustain a 10-year maintenance agreement. And anything that cannot generate recurring revenue must be kept out of the conversation entirely. But this technology did not appear inside a modern laboratory. Its roots stretch back thousands of years to a place most people would never think to look. In the Valley of the Kings, deep within ancient Egyptian tombs dating to approximately 1500 BC, archaeologists discovered polished copper and bronze plates positioned at specific angles inside sealed chambers. For decades, researchers classified these as ceremonial objects, decorative, symbolic. Then a team of thermal engineers re-examined the placements and realized the angles were not random at all. They were calculated precisely to deflect radiant solar heat away from the preserved contents of the burial chambers. The Egyptians were building radiant barriers 3,500 years ago to protect their most sacred possessions from the desert sun without a single watt of power. The Greeks took this principle and wove it into the architecture of entire cities. They oriented homes so openings faced south during winter and north in summer. They used polished stone and white plastered surfaces to bounce solar radiation during the hottest months. Socrates himself described this design philosophy. He called it building with the sun instead of against it. Greek homes maintained comfortable interior temperatures through Mediterranean summers that routinely exceeded 100 degrees, all without a single mechanical system running inside them. The Romans pushed the principle even further. They embedded reflective and light-colored materials into their bathhouse designs to manage radiant heat across enormous interior volumes. Roman engineers understood intuitively what modern physics would later confirm with equations. Controlling where radiant energy goes is far cheaper and far more effective than trying to remove heat after it has already soaked into a structure. For millennia, civilizations on every coastline of the ancient world understood this simple truth. They did not need compressors or refrigerants or ductwork. They needed surfaces that bounced heat instead of absorbing it. And the method worked across empires, climates, and centuries without ever once failing them. Then the modern era arrived and everything quietly changed. Not because the physics stopped working, because someone figured out how to sell you a machine that fights heat month after month, bill after bill, forever. Willis Carrier commercialized mechanical air conditioning in 1902, and an entirely new market was born. By the 1950s, air conditioning had become a symbol of modern American life. Home builders stopped designing with the climate entirely. They sealed windows, eliminated cross-ventilation, lowered ceiling heights, and told buyers not to worry because the AC unit would handle everything. A full generation of American architecture was built to depend on purchased electricity. Passive cooling methods that had worked for millennia were not disproven or replaced. They were simply made invisible by industries that could not profit from them. Now stay with me here because the science is where the industry narrative falls apart completely. Heat enters your home through 3 distinct mechanisms: Conduction is heat traveling through solid materials like walls and ceilings. Convection is heat carried by moving air currents. And radiation is heat transmitted as invisible infrared energy waves that travel through space and strike any surface in their path. Standard fiberglass insulation is designed to slow conduction and reduce convective air movement. That is what it does, and it does that job reasonably well. But fiberglass does almost nothing to stop radiant heat. And here's the number that changes everything you thought you knew about your energy bill. Radiant heat accounts for up to 93% of total heat gain in your attic during summer. The single largest source of heat pouring into your home from above is the one that fiberglass insulation was never designed to address. A radiant barrier changes this equation completely. A properly installed reflective surface blocks up to 97% of incoming radiant energy before it reaches your insulation, your ceiling drywall, or your living space. The heat does not slow down and creep through. It bounces back. It never enters your home at all. Oak Ridge National Laboratory, operated directly by the U.S. Department of Energy, conducted extensive controlled testing throughout the 1990s. Their published findings confirmed that in cooling-dominated climates, radiant barriers reduced ceiling heat gain by 40 to 45%. Homeowners across southeastern states documented cooling cost reductions between 17 and 42%. When combined with proper attic ventilation, some installations produced total energy savings approaching 70% during peak summer months. The Florida Solar Energy Center ran independent studies confirming these results. They recorded attic temperatures dropping from above 150 degrees Fahrenheit to below 100 degrees after radiant barrier installation alone, not spray foam at $6 per square foot, not a $15,000 HVAC replacement, reflective sheeting, and a staple gun. NASA proved the underlying principle decades earlier. The multi-layer insulation aboard Apollo spacecraft and every mission since relies on thin reflective layers separated by air gaps to block radiant heat in environments swinging from 250 below zero in shadow to 500 above zero in direct sunlight. If reflective barriers protect human life in the most extreme thermal environment ever engineered for, they can protect your living room in July. But I need to be honest with you here because accuracy is what separates real knowledge from noise. Radiant barriers are not a universal replacement for all insulation in every climate. In far northern states where winter heating dominates energy costs, the savings are less dramatic because heat transfer in cold weather shifts primarily toward conduction through walls and ceilings rather than radiation from above. Radiant barriers deliver their most powerful results in warm and hot climates where solar radiation drives the majority of indoor heat gain. They also require an air gap in front of the reflective surface to work properly. Laying the material flat against a solid surface with no space reduces effectiveness significantly. Understanding this distinction is what makes the difference between a real result and a wasted Saturday. Here is exactly what to do with this knowledge starting today. Go to any store and buy a pack of heavy-duty emergency Mylar blankets. They cost roughly $3 and cover enough area to test one section of your attic immediately. For a complete installation, buy a roll of radiant barrier sheeting from any hardware store. A 500 square foot roll runs between $40 and $80. For the cheapest possible small area test, heavy-duty aluminum foil works. Staple the reflective material to the underside of your roof rafters with the shiny side facing downward toward the attic floor. Leave a clear air gap between the barrier and the roof deck above. Do not lay it flat on top of existing insulation on the attic floor because trapped moisture can cause problems over time. The entire job requires a staple gun, a utility knife, and a few hours of simple work. No contractor, no permits, no specialized training whatsoever. A homeowner in Houston, Texas installed radiant barrier sheeting across his 1,400 square foot attic in a single weekend. His July electricity bill dropped from $410 to $188. That is a 54% reduction from one weekend of work using material that cost him $60. He calculated the barrier paid for itself in 11 days of cooling savings. His air conditioning system, which previously ran almost continuously through the Texas summer, began cycling on and off normally for the first time in years. He estimated the reduced strain would extend the unit's lifespan by several years, saving thousands more in avoided replacement costs. Now compare that result to what the industry wants you to buy instead. Full attic spray foam insulation costs $4,000 to $8,000 installed. A new high-efficiency HVAC system runs $8,000 to $15,000. Combined, you are writing a check for $12,000 to $23,000, or you spend $60 on reflective sheeting and one Saturday afternoon. $60 versus $23,000 for a solution backed by NASA, validated by the Department of Energy, and confirmed by Oak Ridge National Laboratory. The Egyptians understood radiant heat management before the word radiation existed in any language. The Greeks designed whole cities around it. The Romans engineered it into public infrastructure across an empire. NASA trusted it with human life in orbit. And the Department of Energy published data proving it works inside your home right now today. None of this disappeared because it stopped working. It was quietly set aside because a $3 sheet of reflective material cannot generate quarterly earnings reports. It cannot fund annual service contracts. It cannot build shareholder value or justify executive bonuses. So it sits in the camping aisle labeled as an emergency blanket while your electricity bill climbs higher every summer and the industries that profit from your hot ceiling say absolutely nothing. The physics have not changed in 3,500 years. Reflective surfaces bounce radiant heat. That was true inside an Egyptian burial chamber. It was true aboard a spacecraft circling the Earth at 17,000 miles per hour. And it is true right now, this moment, 6 feet above your head in the attic you have probably never thought twice about. The only thing that ever changed was who profits when you do not know. Now you do.